if you woke up tomorrow and your inner critic was your boss, would you work for that boss or would you put in your 2 weeks?
You don't grow out of your curiosity. You are educated out of it. The barrier that is blocking innovation and divergent thinking doesn't really exist.
Everybody wants confidence. Nobody wants to do the first step of courage. The muscle is atrophied because we're like, well, once I have confidence, then it's always the opposite.
If I'm staying somewhere because of a monster that doesn't exist, and I ever figure out that it doesn't exist, freedom.
And maybe some anger. Like, how long did I stay?
No, of course.
How long did I stay on my bed?
But that's a different process, right? Then you're grieving something.
That's not this episode.
Right. Benji, I wanted to ask you, this is a sort of a personal question, but so answer to what extent you would like. But do you remember the first time that you felt embarrassed about being wrong?
I think the first time I remember feeling wrong was in 4th grade. And around this situation, there's a lot that maybe we could unpack if we want to. But my family had been in Kenya for several years. Right. And then in 4th grade, we were in Kenosha, Wisconsin for 1 year before we went back to Kenya. So it's this weird sort of, I don't fit in, but like where, you know, you're going through a lot as a kid if you're moving around like that. But I had a day, Dave, where I got 5 pink slips in one day.
5.
And the last one specifically was one where it was like, I'm so over this day. So if you get 5, you get detention. And usually it's like, well, that's going to happen over the course of weeks or months. And this happened
took care of it. Yeah.
To 4th grade Benji in one day. It's like, forgets this, talking out of turn, blah, 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 pink slip, pink slip, pink slip, pink slip. End of the day, I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I pack up my backpack early. And teacher goes, you already have 4, might as well have 5. And so it's not like I raised my hand and, you know, I guessed wrong, kind of quiet in that way. But it's like, I don't belong here. I want to feel smaller. I can tell you like the path that I walked out of the classroom to get to the car and, you know, the tears that came after that. And it was so like impactful. There's other moments I can think of because I wasn't the best sit in a classroom student. So I have other ones that, you know, would also stick out. But that's the first one where it was like, it was so palatable and it stuck with me for so long that I had to process it for a long time.
In front of your peers, in front of your
all
classmates.
my entire class. Yeah.
And you walked out and you were crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't cry until I got to the car, right? Because you don't want to add that in as another layer. Kind of trying to feel strong until you get to the car. But yeah, that's probably it.
Maybe this is too meta of a question and it wasn't this way, so just shoot it down if so. But what was school like for you after that? Was that like a line in the sand, or is it just a bad memory and I kind of... This
is sad, so people can come into the grief with me and experience it. School took such a downturn after my 4th grade year for me. So I had a great 5th grade teacher who like really tried, but we found a video a couple years ago of me at like a 5th grade graduation, and she was talking about how hard my year was and like just how I was having to go through a lot. And then all of middle school, just school, I started telling myself a story as a kid that I could not get out of, that like school just wasn't for me, or, you know, and like grades. And it was never to the point where it's like, oh, he's going to like fail this grade. But I was not an A student. I have done a lot of like processing on that kid and like what I would tell that kid now. So I see it with maybe a lot more grace than even, you know, a few years ago. But does that answer?
Yeah. Oh, this is profound. Yeah. Just as I'm not surprised, but there's depth and good story there behind what you're saying. What would you tell 4th grader Benji?
Everything feels trite because in hindsight, the stuff that people tell you that they've learned through experience, it sounds shallow, but they've gone through the depths. So, so what I would say to my 4th grade self coming out, right? Like right now, if I was to go, you're going to learn a lot from this. It's like, that sounds so shallow.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The adults probably told me that then, but they had the weight of years behind it. The joy in the journey of some of the hardest moments of my life, the lessons I learned from those things, I can smile about them. But if I was to say, hey, you're going through this really hard time right now, and like I see you, you're in a new school, you're trying to make new friends, you're trying to figure out how to individualize but also fit in, that kid wouldn't have heard it. But like I think ultimately what it is like a hugging of that kid and just being like, you were doing the best you could. You were also a MK. We have some overlap in our stories. We both grew up in international environments and things. I'm curious just to turn it on you for a second. Like, what was your experience with school? And maybe we should separate them out for a second, because I'll say, like, now I think of school and learning as separate things, where I can see things I was learning as a kid. I was clearly a curious learner. I was making stop motion videos in 5th grade. I was filming, we called it stupid stuff, where we would literally ride a wagon down a hill and go off of like a jump, right? I was doing very creative things from a young age that were new and exploratory. So I was learning.
Yep.
I wasn't good at school. I'm curious, like, what your experience was.
I hope this is comforting to you, but in one sense, your experience is not unique.
Yeah.
It's unique to you,
yes,
but it's not unique to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is profound in many, many ways. Initially tragic, right? That this, what you just described, I think, I'm now ready to say, has happened to everybody. I mean, like a global process of overcritical, governing excessively, forcing curiosity out of us, right? I stumbled over that.
And sometimes coming from people that don't even maybe know what.
Oh, no.
I think a lot of times it's like well-intentioned
Good call.
people.
I do not mean that this was a sinister. I'm not. It wasn't that thoughtful, right? But the tragedy of what you're describing, I think we just take a beat on of. And what I meant by that is I hope this is comforting to you, to me, and to everyone listening. You're not alone, right? That this is a global experience. Without showing my cards too much, so me too, like I had the same, I don't have a moment that I can point to as articulately as you did and as you do, but I have an era, like a feeling. There was something in the air, and it's fascinating to me that I think it was around those ages. So one of my heroes is Sir Ken Robinson,
Go watch his TED Talk.
Please do. Sadly, he has passed away. But he's a hero of mine, and he doesn't know this, but I plan to tell him someday that he helped launch the Center for Play and Exploration. Because his TED Talk, it's either his or Brene Brown's. They go back and forth for the most watched TED Talk of all time. His is about school, and hers is about shame. And those are the ones that the world watches the most. So pause. Why? What is going on there? So he tells the story and mentions, not a fictional story, research that was done asking the world's 5-year-olds multi-use test questions. What are the different uses you can think of for a paperclip? What else could you do with this? Kindergartners, basically, 5-year-olds around the world, tens of thousands. It's a longitudinal study. And he guesses on the percentage of the world's 5-year-olds that test at genius levels of divergent thinking. And divergent thinking, again, the capacity, the ability, the muscle to think outside the box and come up with multiple solutions to a problem. What percentage of the globe's 5-year-olds are genius divergent thinkers?
Oh, the numbers are going to be crazy high.
Yeah. There you go.
80 to 90%.
Yeah, it's like 98%.
Yeah.
And I think the nuance of the method is it's literally every child they worked with, but some couldn't make like the follow-up test or had to use the bathroom or something.
So it's like
Literally everybody, but they have to say it was 98.4, you know.
Sure.
So the world's every human being, when they're 5 years old, is a genius divergent thinker. So just letting that marinate for a minute. And they tested the same kids again in 5th grade, just about when you were forced out of your classroom. You know what the number was then?
I'm going to guess 30%.
It was in the 40s.
Yeah.
So the common thinking for a while was we grow out of curiosity and divergent thinking. Mm-hmm. It's a purely childlike, maybe even childish immaturity that we grow out of, was some of the interpretation of those results. You know, everybody has it as a child. You're curious. You can think outside the box. You can try different things. You can solve problems in innovative ways. But it's just a matter of time. And when you hit a certain age, it's not your fault. Your body, your brain, your chemistry just changes, and you kind of slide that divergent thinking innovation card across you turn it in. You turn 18, and that's it. Well, Sir Ken and many others categorically have proven that not to be true. And it's one of the most miraculous findings, I think, in our time. That instead of growing out of divergent thinking and creativity and curiosity, you learn out of it. You are educated out of it. And that means some wonderful things. The implications of that are incredible. But I want to just pause and say, how does that resonate with you? You don't grow out of your curiosity. You are educated out of it. To be less, that sounds like I'm slamming schools, but you were asking about school and curiosity, right? You learn. Oh, the last time I guessed or tried this, that didn't go so well, so I'm not going to do that.
I'm thinking of a few things. I'm thinking of my 10th grade English teacher and going, school was hard, but he still stands out as someone who was able to cultivate curiosity in me enough by the way he taught English that one person who's like, hey, you ever thought about it a little different, re-spark something. And so I think of that. That's one of the things that immediately came to mind, is going, you're not going to flip that switch and go, hey, every adult, watch how you talk to kids and change how you see the world and like become curious again, and it's just going to happen, right? Because there's a version of this that I imagine that would be amazing. It's like we walk out of this studio and all the adults are like now just telling the kids like, oh, you're curious about that? Go headlong into that. Like be as curious again. Like that world sounds amazing to me. But since that's not an option, we have to get away from this version of believing because we can't change everything, we can't be part of some small, I think of you and I think of me as like, we can be just invitations to that. And one person being that invitation changes a lot. And that goes for school or whatever. That was one thing that came to mind. The other thing is more of a question, because I think some of it happens because of something we mentioned on our first episode, which is that as you grow up, we'll use wind as an example here. You get hit by wind enough, this is the default.
No.
We are on this earth and wind just shows up and we're not curious about it anymore because it's happened enough times. And so adults, that rhythm just is somewhat natural to us. And so there's this, even if you weren't taught out of it, wind will hit that kid enough times in the face where they will go through some sort of process of not being curious about the wind anymore and having to be woken up. So you can take this wherever you want to go, if you want to go first path, second path, but those were the two things that kind of immediately came to my mind.
Well, I'm struck by, especially on the second one, that's learning, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like a cliche only becomes a cliche because you learned, oh, that's normal. Meanwhile, if you are more curious about something that's normal, like does normal mean bored or ho-hum or mediocre? Or
what is normal? I think that's a really good question. What is normal? Just because it's recurring doesn't mean it isn't full of wonder and awe. And it's just, it's repeated enough times to where we call it.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is,
Forms, so categorically, talking big picture, I think the first and maybe the last, the starting point and the ending point of good news about this critic that we all struggle with is that it's learned. It's not an endowed or develop. It's not like kind of, to me, that's wonderful news that it's not something that just happens to me. It's something that I learned over time, which means I can unlearn.
yeah.
Right? I can remember I can recall, oh, that's one way to the Proust quote, of these eyes. Of what became normal was there's one answer. It's in the back of the book. You're wrong. It's embarrassing. Get it right. And if you get it right, you move to the next grade.
Mm-hmm.
So curiosity is not only not helpful, it's frivolous and a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, there's one answer, and that'll work about that far. And it will make for a very mechanistic, efficient kind of world. It's a form of goodness. It's barely good. I mean, it's just kind of okay. And meanwhile, curiosity as this natural posture or way of looking at the world, categorically, right? Infinitely opportunistic,
Mm-hmm.
innovative, just recentering ourselves in this way of looking at the world as generative. And this is where I think the unsexiness of this part of what the center does is so normal and not flashy or brilliant at all. It's kind of profound, I think, but simplistic. Can be a little like, oh, well, that's what we're gonna do, but the implications of it, I think, are profound and kind of world changing. But that this is a muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ability to be curious, and more specifically, to be a divergent thinker. For an adult to think of multiple solutions to a problem is a muscle. It's not an endowed gift. And the research shows this over and over again, and we'll kind of hit the tip of the iceberg here, and I'm assuming our listeners will be curious and go find out. But that if it's a muscle, it can be worked out and it can be trained, and it's simply not true that Benji has this capacity and I don't. Or Einstein and Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Niels Bohr or someone, there's a couple people a generation that don't struggle with this inner critic and self-criticism, and they're not embarrassed to be. They just guess, and every time they guess, they get it right, and they solve like time travel.
Yeah.
Nope, it's just not true. And I think that's gospel-level good news. That I still have capacity. Even sounds like an endowed kind of thing. It's like a muscle, and I haven't used it in a while, so mine is atrophied. And if you'd like to get good at that again, let's work out.
I think that's one side that's awesome to think about. And the other side is, okay, so you were born with that muscle. It's atrophied. I would be curious how we maybe think of this different. I often think in like images. And so I also am thinking that inner critic, that voice, one of the most helpful things for me has been going, well, that's not actually my voice. Can I identify who that inner critic voice is, right? Yeah. So as a kid, you have perceptions of like, let's just go to parents real quick. My relationship with my parents is good. So I'm not, but you will have moments with your parents where you felt misunderstood, where there was like lack of communication, and you're a kid whose brain isn't even fully developed. So you're processing things, but a voice of your parent triggers in your head, and that can be the inner critic. Yep. And so I would say there's two things happening. Part of getting that muscle to not be atrophied anymore is also not attaching to the inner critic voice in your head as if it's yourself. And nice. Going, yeah, right. I'm going to be so sure of how my inner, like when you try to grit your teeth and go, silence the inner critic, it's like, it's just not helpful. But if you can name it and sort of disassociate from, okay, who's talking right now? Is that my mom? Is that my fourth grade teacher?
Right.
Is that,
right.
I don't know who those voices are for you,
right.
but that's a very easy one of the workout methods that has worked for me to try to grow the muscle is going, okay, I am not my inner critic.
Yeah, that differentiation of this is not something about me. It's outside of me, or yeah, all that is really helpful. And I was thinking as you were talking about your teacher, what you learned that day. A person in authority told you what you're saying and doing and how you're showing up is unhelpful and wrong, and how easy it is to take the next step that maybe even they weren't trying to be gracious towards them in that day. Not even like an identity level thing for you, but just you're wrong and that's not helpful and you're in the way, and just what we learn over the time. And how it takes on that inner critic shame voice takes on an accent, or it's a pastor or a priest or a teacher, almost always someone in authority.
But you identify with it long enough to where the accent leaves.
You're
it
like,
dissipates.
Is that me?
That's me. And that's the part of, we believe that is us. And then it's harder to get out of, or to try to, even how many times have you told yourself that you're not creative? How many times have you told yourself that you're not a good strategic problem solver, or not, whatever the thing is that in your setting is required sort of for you to, let's say, break through. Oftentimes I feel like we've said the same things and we have these ruts and grooves in our brain. It's like we've walked that road so many times, that shame road, that it's like the default setting is a voice that you weren't even given at the outset.
It just strikes me as the exponential amounts of power and strength that you give it by associating it with yourself, right? Like, I am telling myself I am not, and look, I'll prove it to you. When I try to do this, I can't do it. And it just like layers on exponentially. It gets exponentially harder to break out of that. But if I may say, look, I'll prove it to you. I'm not creative. I'm not a divergent thinker. And so, Dave, come up with all the different possible uses for a paperclip that you can. And I go to try, and I get like 2, and I have the blank page syndrome. In my critic, my shame voice
shouting.
is scream, "You idiot! Like, you see, I told you. Who do you think you are? You're nothing special." Just whatever it sounds like to you. But if this muscle theory is true, which it is, that's exactly what would happen with an atrophied muscle. But your point is brilliant in that it's just a muscle that I've never, like when I break my arm and I have a cast on for the summer and the cast comes off in the fall and I can't extend my arm. No one thinks for a second that I have lost the hardware to extend my arm.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, your muscle's so weak you can't use it. Do this a little bit every day. So that moment of like, I'm going to be divergent and innovative and try all this, and you can't do it, is precisely what should happen if it's a muscle.
The word "yet" just kept flashing in my head.
Oh
you can't do it yet, because the ... yet is the important part there. Yeah, you can't think of 100 ways to use a paperclip because this is the first time you've tried it. You try 5 days in a row. That list isn't probably still maybe not at 100, but it's definitely grown substantially because of just the effort you're putting in. And I also think you take the invitation to play and explore enough times, you start to prove to yourself, this is a new and a better way of walking. You do that in leadership. You do that in a pivot moment in your life where you're going through a career change, or you're going through, something with your wife or your spouse, and you're like, okay, well, what if we tried this different? Or what if it's giving you proof. I used to say courage today, boldness tomorrow, confidence down the road.
Yeah, brilliant.
The idea is just that everybody wants confidence. Nobody wants to do the first step of courage. The muscle is atrophied because we're like, well, once I have confidence, then, but it's always the opposite, right? And that's been true since the very beginning.
Yes.
And we kind of lost that ability to step out in courage because we identified with those voices.
That's kind of what I mean by the profundity of it, of how simple. Oh, you mean it's just a muscle? It's like a thing that if I do 2 push-ups today, I can do maybe 3 next week? Yeah. If you just work out, like it will happen. Rather than this, it's like the exponential momentum is now starting to go the other way. And we talked about layering on. I'm an idiot. Shame just builds exponentially when you try it at first and it doesn't work. But then if you start trying it and 4 days later, you're like, oh my gosh, I came up with 10 today and I could do 1. the momentum starts to shift the other way, which will only happen if this is true, right? It's a muscle. It's just a dumb ability, like whether you work out or not, or practice or not. And the power of, again, sort of profound in its simplicity, just embarrassment or shame. I don't know how, or I only came up with 2 or whatever. I think images a lot too, and we work with people at the center. If you need some kind of like mantra or movement or some way to kind of remind yourself and get out of it. So I sometimes literally think about those cartoons like on your shoulder,
Brush
of
the
like
devil
you
off your
dummy.
shoulder.
And sometimes I literally will just go like this, or
I feel it in my jaw.
oh really?
I can feel the tense
You're
in my
clenching
jaw.
it?
So yeah. So if I can feel it in my face a lot more since I've started recognizing this.
Yeah.
It's like I'm being very intense in this moment right now. Like I am imagining like the weight of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, and
What do you do? Do you like open your jaw?
Oh yeah, just loosening your mouth. Like
it starts to,
you're holding it there.
Yeah. And so it gets a little meta here at some point, but the idea that the thing that is blocking, the barrier that is blocking innovation and divergent thinking and curiosity and all of that doesn't really exist. I mean, it does because you feel it, but is it not the kind of thing that there's this thing that's keeping me from doing this? But if I just kind of go like this, there's nothing there.
It's resistance.
Yeah.
That's the best name that I've heard for it is in The War of Art.
Yeah.
Where the whole book is just railing against resistance.
Yeah.
And I know there's like different flavors of this.
Sure.
But when you think of like once you're in the act of doing the thing, it's way different because you've actually taken the step. But the voice is so loud right before you do the thing.
Yeah.
And so that resistance becomes the thing that you're actually dreading. And then once you're in it, it's crazy how quickly it can dissipate. But that just to take the step, it's like we dread the resistance that we're going to feel.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that's an interesting, like I'm not dreading the actual action itself, right? Like even to get really practical, recording this with you.
Yeah.
I can feel nerves before we hit record because resistance.
Yeah. What if I can't think of anything to say. It's going to be lame.
Yeah. Resistance. But once record is hit, like, no, we're doing this. Yeah. We're in it. Let's try.
Yeah.
And then dissipate.
Yeah. The image of the kid and the monster under the bed has become very precious to me. And I think a lot of us can resonate with how practical this means for people's lives or experiences, whatever. But I think the meaning of it, or the image of me sitting in a bed or lying in a bed and refusing to get out of it. And meanwhile, the whole world is out there, and I'm staying on my bed because there's a monster under the bed. And if I dangle my feet over the side, it's going to get me. And there's no monster there. But it doesn't matter in some sense because I think there is.
Can I take that a step further? I heard someone use this analogy once with their daughter who was having a hard time with the monster. And he said, his name's Joe Hudson. You guys can look him up. He's great. He said, the monster just wants a hug. And I was it's like,
ooh.
Because the truth is, it's like resistance isn't real or the monster isn't real, but like you can still name it. We can name what that monster is saying. So like, and we're even calling it in this episode, the inner critic. So is it that my 4th grade teacher wants a hug? Is it that my 4th grade self wants a hug? Is it that I'm so afraid of the shame that I am carrying with me and that part of me doesn't want to be seen? But something there, like I don't want to look wrong.
Right.
Hug that part. What if you're wrong?
Yeah.
Go head first into that. Okay, so you're wrong. How does that change tomorrow? This podcast, whatever you think is going to happen from it, doesn't happen. Okay, what? Then what? Well, hug the monster. And like something there is just like, oh, that invitation to like get out of bed and I don't know, because I agree with you. It's just like this weird, that image of like, you're going to realize, oh, like maybe it's like you hug it and it disappears and however you want to imagine that. There's something there.
Transformational. I mean, seismic, categorical change in a life, right? if I'm staying somewhere because of a monster that doesn't exist,
Yeah.
and I ever figure out that it doesn't exist, it's liberation, it's freedom.
And maybe some anger. Like, how long did I stay?
No, of course.
How long did I stay on my bed?
But that's a different process. Right? Then you're grieving something.
That's not this episode.
Right. I mean, the image of like looking under the bed, that's curiosity, right? The thing that you are most afraid of, what if it didn't exist? And then you piece together, oh my gosh, it's not there.
Can I ask you, personal level?
Sure.
What are a couple things that were the monsters under the bed?
Oh, well, this is a little bit of a cheap answer, but you can keep pressing. I'll go as deep as you would like. But the what if I, what is going to go wrong if, or what kind of kickback and repercussions if I express something that I want to, how will that be received? It could be a guess and an answer, or it could be, in school, or it could be a relationship really close to me. If I hurt them or they hurt me and it's just festering and I bring it up. The what if we actually like locked eyes with this and named this thing that has been eating us away from the inside, for sure that will end things. I mean, we're barely holding it together now, And if I say, hey, remember when you said, and then I did, and you did, that destroyed me. And I've been angry at you, forever. Like, it'll be over. It will just bring everything to a screeching halt.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're curious about it and you start moving toward the thing that you don't know if it's going to happen or not. And you guess, you try, you breach it, and they stay.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, me too.
Mm-hmm.
That hurt my feelings too. I'm so glad you said something. I miss you.
What a weird juxtaposition it is. That like what the inner critic is telling us and then what we actually desire as humans. It's like you desire connection. The only way to connection is like through that level of honesty.
Yeah.
And yet the inner critic is telling you, well, like if I do that, I sever connection. But it's like, well, no, you're not actually truly connected unless you're honest. And to just say a me too real quick to what you said, I think that's all the values work and all the care that I have for undercurrents is all right there. Is that I think on a personal level, honesty, not in the like, oh, I'm going out and habitually lying, but I'm, instead of telling the full truth, I'm gonna hold back this part of it because this last 10% feels unsafe.
Yeah.
It feels like bad image management, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing that the last 10% is where the actual connection is, and that you can't be fully seen and fully loved unless you go there. Yeah. And that can be in anything. That could be in an organization.
Exactly.
You don't have to think about this in a romantic relationship. Your circles of like what you want, it's all there. It's honesty. It's taking on like that inner critic kind of head first.
Yep. Yeah. What you think will happen in catastrophizing, and it doesn't happen. A human goes a little bit crazy, like in the best possible way. You know, the thing I was afraid of doesn't exist or didn't happen in the way that I did think that it would. You're free. And again, we're an example of a relationship, but school, raising your hand and guessing at an answer, getting it wrong and surviving it.
Can I tell you one of the stupidest?
Oh, of course, please.
I've told this story maybe once before, but never this publicly. One time we were helping our friend move some stuff from their storage unit back to their house, and I didn't know how to do the like ropes across it, like tighten the rope properly, and I literally considered just not tightening it and not telling anyone that I didn't know how to do it. And I'm like, their bookshelf's about to fly off this truck, and because I don't want to tell someone that I don't know how to tighten this clamp properly, I'm gonna let that happen. And then another time, this was like right out of high school. The school I was at needed my social security number, and I couldn't remember it. So I lied and said, and I'm like, they're about to enter this into a computer. It will for sure not work. What are you lying about?
I know.
Just because you're embarrassed to admit that
Yes.
it's like that. And it's just.
It's a profound story, Benji. I mean, because it demystifies. It like wakes you up.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
It's this thing. And divergent thinking is the muscle that the center teaches to do just that.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrating what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
If you really don't know it, don't pretend. Who has not been in the boardroom, the conference room, the sanctuary, and a question is asked in a way like this? As we all know, and then they say something that you have no clue what they're talking about. There is a way that authority can be wielded that sets these hierarchies of I know and you don't. And meanwhile, especially when it comes to work, if you're having a meeting about solving a problem, probably nobody knows what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an idea. What if we just named the things we don't know and we're curious about them? The inner critic will either entirely disappear or shrink down to about this big, and you can kind of mess around with it, rather than this paralysis. Those are great examples. I mean, I've read stories of co-pilots in planes who are like, there is too much ice on these wings. We're going to die.
Say anything.
And they wouldn't have said anything. And that's not like a, you horrible person. It just makes this point of it is incredibly powerful. It is paralyzing. And so, again, back to the kind of unflashy, mediocre almost workout, you just practice. And what do you practice? You practice being wrong. You practice guessing. Sir Ken was facilitating as he does. Sir Ken, he's knighted in education, as they do across the pond. He was facilitating some global conference on education, and the Dalai Lama was there. So he's like, about educating children of the world. And he said something, he was so excited to have the Dalai Lama there and his presence and his wisdom and all that. And he said something like, what do you think is the most debilitating barrier to children's education around the world? And he's sitting there like cross-legged in his chair, and he inhales to answer, and everyone like leans in and he says, I don't know. What do you think?
Yep.
And Sir Ken said it stayed with him forever. And he said he could feel the whole room just like,
we don't have to know.
That's the starting point of knowing, right?
Right.
And he realized, I don't know what is debilitating kids around the world.
Because if we
education.
did also.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't know. And that is how you start. That's how you start to find out. Because don't you know that even the Dalai Lama was like, everybody's watching. Cameras are on. This is going to be in journals around the world. We don't know. Just say something. Or who do you think you are? No, whatever the voice, whatever the critic was saying to him in that moment, I think, without being in his head or his heart, I have no idea.
It's a lot of small moments, I think, as practice for the muscle to get to a moment like that.
Yeah.
So
yes, of course.
Just to be self-deprecating again, but those moments where I'm like recognizing the hell, what were you lying about, right? Like then those built up over time. You go, oh, like there's no pressure to know X or to have opinions about this specific thing in politics that you've never gone deep on, and you feel like you have to have an opinion. Even it's okay to start from I don't know, or I haven't read enough, or I haven't, that permission. There's something there. You said something that I think is also a really good kind of takeaway from me from this conversation is it starts the inner like critic starts to shrink down. One of the things that is a good practice for that is just changing the voice of that. So you could say, okay, if you woke up tomorrow and your inner critic was your boss, would you work for that boss or would you put in your 2 weeks? Or like you could make them, if they were a friend and they always talked like that to you, would you still be friends with them or would you stop hanging out with them? And you just keep changing that voice over and over again. You could change, literally it'll be like, okay, imagine that your inner critic sucked helium.
Right.
What is this? It starts to shrink the voice in your head. Like if my inner critic is the size of a mouse or the size of an ant, and I can just But we don't feel playful enough with that because we feel, I won't even say we, I feel this pressure of like, I'm going to grit my teeth and overcome my inner critic.
Like beat
it's
it.
like, well, if your inner critic can be any shape of any monster and it's already living rent free in your house, you might as well change the image in your head to whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah. You know what I think you're describing? I think you're talking about mocking the devil.
It's a good way of saying it.
Are you familiar with this phrase?
I haven't heard it that way, but
Mock the devil and he will flee from you.
yeah, oh, there you go.
So it turns out Martin Luther, who, depending on your interpretation, either started or took to another level the Reformation. Kind of changed Christianity from what it was to kind of maybe what it is now a little bit. And was very candid about his own temptations and paralysis, and he just got fed up with it all, and he started writing about, after practicing in his cell, let's just not put too fine a point on it, like the Prince of Darkness, right? Satan, the devil, whatever you make of that being or not. And I think when you said helium, it made me think of him. He started teasing it.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't even know exactly what he said, but his most famous quote is, I love to mock Satan, for he is an intolerably vain creature and cannot stand to be ridiculed or mocked. Sometimes it is with a fart that I chase him. He would like talk back to his temptation. He would mock his tempter. And he said it was revolutionary. And again, like the Prince of Darkness having a helium voice. It's done. Like the whole spell is broken. And again, all of this is wishful thinking unless goodness is running things. It's an intensely, wildly good world out there, and good wins. And there's more good than bad. And in fact, bad is just good stuff that's lost its way, and it'll come home again after a while. I mean, the house of cards coming down, by saying, I don't know, or what's going on here. Isn't it fascinating that both curiosity and fear are completely built upon the unknown? Right? It's the only reason they exist. It's the kind of precursor for both of them. Something is unknown. Fear, you run away from it. Curiosity, you lock eyes with it and head straight for it. And the process of locking eyes with it and heading straight for it is a synonymous way to say divergent thinking or brushing shame off of your shoulder, turning the self-inner critic down. I'm not so sure that everything you're saying is absolutely 100% true here, and I'm just going to fiddle around the edges here and I'm going to start cutting you off at the pass. I'm going to shrink you down to size. You're curious, being curious about the thing you're most afraid of.
We talked about it in the last episode.
Yeah.
The artist who goes, man, I'm
Yes.
so afraid of beetles.
Bug
I'm
guy.
so afraid of bugs. What if I press into that and now I am making art with these crazy exotic bugs and I'm surrounded by them and it's become his interest.
Yeah.
He's preserving them.
At very least, worst case scenario, he's not as afraid of it anymore. And probably, more accurately, it's completely neutral to him now. He's not afraid of it. And then ridiculous goodness side over here, he actually enjoys it now and he celebrates it and he creates goodness out of the thing that he was afraid of. That's goodness that I'm talking about. Transforming the unknown in a safe language, or more accurately, the thing that you're terrified of, transforming it into something that you actually love and enjoy. Or, like, I'm just indifferent to you now. And either one of those is transformational. And not to be like hidden or coy or elusive with this, divergent thinking practice is just practicing guessing and being wrong. Doing the same exercises that they gave the 5-year-olds. How many different uses for a paperclip can you come up with? I can't, invite is too soft of a word. I implore people listening, in your practice, in your morning pages, whatever, try it. Just try it. No one will know. No one's ever going to see the ridiculous answers you come up with. No one's going to know when you stare at the blank page. But practice. Try. What are the different What are the different ways to get into this room? Find a word you don't know the definition of and guess at what the definition might be.
I do this with exact thing with core values.
Oh, really?
So I call it core values try on, where I'm like, what's a value that you don't think you would ever pick, right? Because I usually have people go from like, oh, here's 50, go down to 20 real quick, right? So go look at the 30 that you didn't pick. These are values that other people would hold, but you wouldn't hold. What's one that sounds wildly unfamiliar to you? Okay, just try it on. You wake up tomorrow and X value is your value. How do you eat breakfast in the morning? How do you talk to your wife? How do you go to work and show up in whatever that way? And it's funny because the first couple of times I did it, my inner critic was like, "Oh, this almost feels too playful." And then you watch other people where they come in and they're like, "I gotta know. Like, I gotta know, what I care about or whatever." And it's just like, well, actually, like, not really. It's just, this is all kind of play. This is all kind of us just going, what would it look like for us to lean into this? And like, again, like, just explore, explore.
And if this is starting to, I feel like it's upon us now to say, because this is usually when we're working with folks, they start to push back on like, so you're saying play and exploration, curiosity, divergent thinking are like the way that we're going to like beat this. I'm like, yeah.
But that's because they ask that because they're not sure on definitions.
Sure.
We'll get to definitions.
We will. But I
think that's
to not leave people wondering completely about that. This muscle that we're describing right now, I'm calling it divergent thinking. You can like nuance, synonym it a little bit. It's the same muscle that you need in that boardroom, in the conference room, in your marriage of 50 years that's on the rocks because you're so stuck. The boss, the manager walking into the conference room saying, if we don't solve how to get more product sold in quarter 3, everybody loses their job and we're out of business in quarter 4. That moment, those moments, when she looks at you and says, if you don't start caring about me and loving me in different ways, it's over. And that moment in the conference room, is there a more high stakes potential for shame and embarrassment moment? Probably not, but coming backwards to you sitting at your breakfast table tomorrow morning, thinking about different uses for a paperclip, it's the same muscle that you need in the boardroom and in your marriage. And when the stakes and your reputation are literally on the line, it's just getting ready for that. It's working out. And I think that back to kind of the gospel level good news of this, that's what I mean, that something as generative and redemptive and helpful as saving a marriage or a relationship, pulling a business out of the gutter, solving poverty, ending violence and war, divergent thinking, curiosity, freedom to fail, that's what's going to do it. There's no question. There's no question about it. It's a matter of scale, right? And that's where people are like, one's a big, hairy, real adult problem. This is just messing around, categorically. The only thing that's different is the level of shame or fear of failure or inner critic in both of those. You work out and do the workouts every day. When you come to those moments when your reputation is on the line and lives are on the line, it's the same. We could do this. What if how about this? We could try. Have you ever done that? And if you're on a team of people that have exercised those muscles together, it's exponential. It's not just yours. It's yours and mine and hers. And what I say is bouncing off of her. And then it's like the kids with the paperclip where they had to shut them up. Like, stop giving answers. It's okay. Fine. Stop. Yeah. It's too much.
Let's fast forward to the end really quick, because I think this is probably my last point I want to make. But you get to the end of life, or you look back on your life and you do a retrospective. You go, what are the things I feel regret about? Daniel Pink wrote a book, Power of Regret. And I think when we think about the inner critic, there's one part that's like, okay, I got to work out this muscle in this moment, and we can shame the devil, all this sort of stuff. There's another version that's like, you can ask people what they regret. You can even look back in your life at things that you regret, and it illuminates things that you need to almost mock the devil on. or because the 4 regrets. So he interviewed like almost 20,000 people for this study. They would send in their regrets. He's like, I'm not even sure if people are going to respond to this, and people are like, no, I would gladly share my regrets. So he gets it to 4. He says foundation regrets, boldness regrets, moral, and connection. And I think of a lot of what you're saying as a boldness regret. I could have spoke up, but I didn't. I could have, whatever that thing is, where like I could have moved to that city, and then you look back and you're like, what if? And it's a boldness regret, right? Other people have foundation regrets. Foundation regrets are like, I should have started working out earlier, or I could have stopped smoking, but I didn't. These foundation things to our health and all of that. And then you have moral regrets. This is where a lot of the work that I'm passionate about comes in, where it's people look back and go, man, I feel like I had this inner value of compassion or love or whatever it is, and I didn't. I should have been kinder. I should have not made fun of that kid when I was in school. And a lot of us live with the shame of all of these moments. We don't flip it on its head and go, oh, it's actually kind of showing us what we care about. And the last one is connection regret, which is like, you think in a moment like, oh, I should reach out to them. Then you feel shame of like, oh, they probably don't want me to reach out to them, right? And all of these things are monsters under the bed. All of these things are inner critic. And so you're looking at the things that you regret, or listening just to the people that have regrets when they get to the end of their life. What are those things? And going, I got to kill the inner critic around these areas. Like if I am having this inner prompt to go have the conversation with somebody at my work, that's the hard conversation, I'm just going to have it because I don't want connection regret. That is a real monster. You get to the end of your life and you missed connection, you are going to regret that. Or boldness, like, if I don't step out right now and just try, even if it doesn't work out, at least I'll know what happened. But what if I don't do this? That retrospective is going to be much more painful. And I think the older we get, the more we can learn from that. That we have a track record where we're like, we didn't reach out, we wish we would have. We didn't reach out, we wish we would have. All right, just change that. Just reach out. Just leaning into that. The way that it changes your inner critic and it grows that muscle of like, no, if it is one of these areas, the data shows it, my personal stories show it. I can tell you, we could be here a long time till I'm blue in the face. I could tell you regrets that I have around these 4 things. But you can either look at that and just keep regretting it, or it's like, no, today I'm going to get curious about why I've let the inner critic rule for so long. So
I'm deeply grateful for the chance to be curious about things that paralyze us and make us afraid, and specifically talking about shining light on this inner critic, bringing it out into the light. It certainly seems to shrink down or scurry away in talking about it out loud with you. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you. It's a good world out there. Stay curious. We'll see you next time.